Welcome back to Lessons from the Front and to KwaJims, or should I say Rorke's Drift, here on the old border between Zululand and the Natal colony. Behind me is the old mission station, and just a little bit to the left is the old storeroom that you'll see in the battlefield that Bruce and myself are about to enjoy playing on.
As we pan across our tabletop recreation of Rorke's Drift, with its makeshift storeroom and hospital, it's worth remembering just how desperate the situation was on the evening of the 22nd of January, 1879. Only hours earlier, a British column had been destroyed beneath the slopes of Isandlwana. More than 1,000 imperial and colonial troops had been killed, and news of the disaster was now spreading across the frontier. Here at Rorke's Drift, a small mission station on the banks of the Buffalo River, fewer than 150 British and colonial troops suddenly found themselves isolated and vulnerable. The men stationed here knew that Zulu warriors were on the move. With little time to spare, Lieutenants Chard of the Royal Engineers and Bromhead of the 24th Regiment ordered the mission station transformed into a fortress. Mealie bags, biscuit boxes, and ox wagons were hastily assembled into defensive barricades linking the hospital, storehouse, and cattle kraal. These improvised defences are faithfully represented on our tabletop today. For this game, Bruce and I were joined by an old wargaming friend, Andrew, and his son, Peter, and Andrew's friend, Glenn, who had come a long way to enjoy the spectacle. We used 28mm miniatures and the black powder ruleset to recreate one of the most famous actions of the Anglo-Zulu War. After rolling for commands, Bruce took charge of the British defenders, leading Chard and Bromhead's tiny garrison. Pete and I would command the Zulu attack. I found myself in the role of Prince Dabulamanzi kaMpande, half-brother of King Cetshwayo, and the historical commander who, despite explicit orders not to cross into Natal, led the attack on Rorke's Drift.
Right, so I'm going to be playing as Dabulamanzi, as the Zulus, and I'm thinking that I need to concentrate my attack somewhere along that barricade, so that he doesn't have the advantage of all-round defense. But if I only attack on one side, it may get him to bring everything across to that one side. So I think what I'm going to do is attack on the two narrow ends of the table. I'm going to get Peter to attack on the side where the storehouse is, and I'm going to attack where the hospital is. Let's see how it goes.
So Peter would lead the attack from the northeast with the objective of capturing the eastern redoubt beyond the cattle kraal. Meanwhile, I would strike from the west, hoping to overwhelm the defenders around the hospital and western barricades. On paper, it seemed a sound plan. The reality proved rather different.
Huh? They'll be back.
As the first Zulu warriors emerged from the surrounding scrubland, Bruce reacted quickly. Reinforcements were rushed to both threatened sectors, strengthening the very positions Peter and I had hoped to overwhelm. Peter's warriors advanced boldly against the cattle kraal, but the open ground proved deadly. The disciplined volleys of the defenders tore gaps through the advancing ranks. Time and again, the warriors attempted to close the distance, only to be driven back by relentless rifle fire. To the west, my impis fared little better. Although they succeeded in reaching the mealie bag walls, every yard of ground had to be paid for in blood. Warriors who survived the approach found themselves fighting determined defenders protected by sturdy barricades. Several fierce assaults were launched, but each was eventually repulsed.
Stand by. Sergeant.
For a time, it appeared that history might repeat itself. Just as at the real battle, the defenders seemed capable of holding off far larger numbers through discipline, firepower, and well-prepared positions. Peter and I realized that our initial attacks had played directly into the British strengths. If we continued to attack in narrow columns, Bruce would simply concentrate his fire against each assault in turn. The Zulu commanders, therefore, changed tactics. Rather than attacking one position at a time, Pete and I decided to assault along multiple sectors of the perimeter. forcing Bruce's defenders to divide their attention and spread their precious firepower across a much broader front. The effect was immediate. Peter's warriors stormed into the cattle kraal and fought their way up to the stone walls of the storehouse. For a moment, it seemed as though the eastern redoubt might fall. But Bruce's veterans fought back with remarkable determination, and after a savage fight, the attack was finally driven back. I thought you might want to hear from a local guide, Brian, on what the Zulus were saying as they charged in.
Right, so I'm here with Brian. Brian, what would the Zulu warriors have shouted out when they charged in?
Hebe, uSuthu. And when they speared someone, they would go, Ngadla, which means I've got you, I have eaten.
Thank you.
No problem.
On the western side of the camp, my impis launched fresh assaults from several directions simultaneously. Again and again, my warriors surged forward. Again and again, they were met by rifle fire, bayonets, and fresh hand-to-hand combat. The defenders held. Then came the turning point. During the third major assault, enough warriors reached the northwestern barricade to overcome the exhausted defenders. The weight of numbers finally told, with some warriors pinning the British frontally, others, with shouts of Hebe, uSuthu, charged over the mealie-bag walls and burst into the interior of the position. For the first time, the British line had been breached. The fighting immediately descended into a brutal melee around the hospital. Deprived of the protection offered by the barricades, the defenders found themselves surrounded. One by one, the isolated pockets of resistance were finally overwhelmed. Soon afterwards, the Zulus forced their way into the hospital itself. Room by room, the defenders were driven back. The mud-walled building that had served as a refuge for the wounded became the scene of desperate close-quarter fighting as Dabulamanzi's warriors secured the second objective. At that point, the outcome was no longer in doubt. With the hospital captured and the western position firmly in Zulu hands, 2 of the 3 objectives had fallen. The remaining British strongpoint was increasingly isolated and surrounded by growing numbers of warriors. Recognizing that further resistance would only delay the inevitable, the players agreed that the mission station had fallen. In our final version of events, Prince Dabulamanzi returned to Ulundi with news that would have pleased the warriors who followed him. Though he had ignored his king's orders and crossed the Buffalo River into Natal, he had at least achieved what the historical attack could not. His warriors had washed their spears, and Rorke's drift had fallen. Thanks for watching another episode of Lessons from the Front. Please do remember to give it a thumbs up and do leave a comment. I do appreciate all your input. Then I'd like to say thank you to Bruce for making this game happen. All the figures and terrain belong to him. And then thank you to Peter for joining me in using the Zulus and representing Prince Dabulamanzi with me. Thank you to Andrew and Glenn for joining us and watching our game. And then to my brother Frank for driving me into Zululand and helping me visit and gather information at Rorke's Drift. So guys, until next time, happy gaming!
Oh my eye, will you look?